Good morning, friends. I hope that this finds everybody well. Today is the 21st day of the month of Elul. We're really approaching the last week of the month. And today we begin the 19th chapter, a new chapter in the Mesilas Yesharim, the path of the just, from Rabbi Moshe Lutzato, known as the Ramchal. And the 18th chapter deals with piety. The Hebrew word for piety is chasidus, and the root of the word chasidus is the word chesed, kindness. And what we've been focusing on is that really the way in which a person achieves a more evolved state of piety is by expanding the goodness that they offer to the world. And when we think about contributions of goodness, it's really important to do a deep dive to really understand the implications, the motivations, and to really think very consciously, like really deliberately and intentionally about how we make choices, what informs each choice, and how we kind of exploit each day to find all of the opportunities of advancing the cause of goodness in the world. And so today, in the 19th chapter, the Ramchal is going to try to divide and create categories of different acts of different components of piety through chesed. So he writes as follows: Chelkei hachasidus harishonim gimel. There are three primary divisions of piety. The first relates to deed, meaning actions. The second is the manner of the performance. How is something done? And the third is the intention. So there's the act. Let's say, for example, giving charity. So there's a person who's hungry, and so the act is feeding somebody who's hungry. But how did a person go about that? So the first category is the action in itself. There was somebody who was hungry who now got food. The second is the manner of the performance. How was that done? Right? Was it done with a smile? Was it done with dignity? Was it done with a sensitivity to really the efficiency of networking the needs and the resources? And the third is the intentionality. A person can be doing it with a smile, but on the inside they can be having all sorts of negative feelings. So those are the three main categories. So we're just going to see the beginning of the first. The next line the Ramchal writes, for those who are following along in Chaver Up, chapter 19. This is line number 2. The first division of deed itself further divides into two subdivisions. The first between a person and God, and the second between people and each other. So in Hebrew, it's ben adam l'chaveroi and ben adam l'makom. So when we think about the action itself, what kind of action? Is this an action of spiritual practice that really centers and orients towards the divine? For example, thinking about the Exodus of Egypt, or putting on tefillin, making a blessing. That's something that we believe, although it is directed and focused towards the divine, still affects the world. And so too, the way in which we interact with other people. Let's say a mitzvah that's been adam l'chaveroi, inviting guests, leaving over a corner of the field, even though that is something that is directed towards and focused on the needs of another person. Why does a person leave over the corner of a field? Because God said so, right? So on a deeper level, there is no difference between ben adam l'makom and ben adam l'chaveroi. That part of piety, and why piety is so deeply connected to kindness in terms of chesed and chasidus, is that it's really one and the same. We are manifesting the divine will, we are doing good for the world, and people benefit from that goodness. So when we think about our intentionality, so the physical world makes it much easier for us to engage in the spiritual world. We've said this over in years past. Maybe even we said it over in this year. The Textual Activism says that the Hebrew word for taste, tam, is the same as reason, tam ha-mitzvahs. Because just like in a physical space, we need to eat food to be able to be healthy. God made it easy, perhaps a little too easy, by giving food taste. So too, for our souls, they require mitzvahs to be nourished, the commandments. And God made it easy to follow the commandments by giving them reasons. They're intuitive, it makes sense, right? We should take care of each other, we should help advance the cause of goodness in the world. But at the end of the day, they both need to get done, because we are a body that houses the soul. And so when we think about the intentionality of bringing kindness to the world, whether it's in the intention that we have of offering a blessing to the divine in gratitude practice for food we're going to eat, or whether it's taking care of the needs of other people, there really is no separation, because when we become better people, the people around us benefit, society benefits. And on a deeper level, we really believe in the interconnectivity of souls, the interconnectivity of humanity. There's an idea that when the tide rises, all of the ships right, also benefit and get elevated. And so when we bring God closer to this world, when we bring this world closer to God, it's a different dynamic. The more godliness that's revealed, the more goodness that's revealed, the more that we do good, the more the godliness is there, etc. And I wanted just to connect this a little bit to this week's Torah portion, because there's a powerful, powerful verse at the end of chapter 29 in Deuteronomy. It's chapter 29, it's verse 28. It says, "Hanistoris laHashem," the concealed acts are for God. "V'haniglois lanu ulevanenu," and but for the things which are revealed, it's for us and for our children, forever and ever, to apply all the provisions of the teaching of the Torah. And the context of this is really about the covenant of Arvus, the shift from being responsible for things which are not revealed to things which are revealed, is a shift between us taking responsibility for each other. It's known as Kol Yisrael Revim Zelazeh. Rashi brings it down on this verse, that all of Israel are guarantors for each other. But in the mystical tradition, that's also brought Rabbi Akiva Eiger in the Gemara in Yuma and Pevav Amud Beis 86b, Rabbi Akiva Eiger on the side of the Gemara in the Gilyon HaShas quotes from the Ramah Mepanoi, one of the great mystics, student of the Ramak, the famous author of the Talmud Devairo, Trees of Deborah, maybe something like that is the translation. I don't know how they translate it in English. Maybe the Date Tree of Deborah, I'm not sure. So he writes that it's Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh, that it's actually that each one of us, the word Arev also means beyond guarantor, also means mixed up, that we're all mixed up with each other, because the Talmud teaches that the repentance of the individual is so powerful that the entire world is forgiven. And he explains that within each one of us we have a unique blend of all sorts of things, including a mixture of all of the souls that exist right now. And so when I do repent, so then the portion of my soul that exists within you and in the entire world, it's all forgiven. And so when a person is becoming a better person, so then all people are affected in the positive, and so too for the negative. Maimonides writes this in terms of seeing the entire world being balanced between good and evil, and that each person's next act will determine which way the scales lean. And that's a healthy framing in the simple, that we don't know where the world is holding and how impactful our next action can be, but on a deeper level, that really we are, right, the entirety of the world. Each one of us has the ability to affect the entire world for good, or God forbid for the opposite. And one of the things that's interesting, if you take a look at the verse, and it appears this way in Safari as well, there are 11 dots, one on each letter, starting with the word lanu on asul vanenu, and then the first half of the word ad. So the letter Ayin has it, the letter Dalid does not have a dot on top of it. And one of the things that's really interesting that I've been thinking about this week is that the difference between the othering, which in Hebrew is the word acher, and the word that we use for ally, the word chaver, and about connectivity and partnership and seeing one's attachment to another as so intimate and so integral and essential that there actually is no space for the other. And one of the things that's really interesting, particularly in the context of seeing what's revealed and uncovering it and understanding that there are things that we don't understand that are out there that are hidden, and there are things that we know that there's something that's being concealed but we don't know what it is, and we have to kind of dig deeper, which is very much what the Ramchal here is saying about piety, is that you can want to be a good person all day long, but until that translates into the world of action and the way in which we think about and we learn about what it means to be good and how to be the best good, all of that really affects and reveals the ultimate intentionality that we have the capacity to expand in the space of goodness. So what's interesting in the very first line of the Shema, some of you I'm sure have observed this and others maybe not, that there are two letters which are enlarged. If you read the Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that hero is with the Lord our God, the Lord is one, that the very last letter of the first word, Shema, the Ayin, is big, and the last letter of the word Echad, which is the last word in the line, it's a big Dalid. And it's important because things often that are the exact opposites are the closest to the thing itself. And so the word Shema with an ayin that doesn't really make a sound, if it was read with an aleph, it would be Shema, perhaps. Like, perhaps there's a God. And so too with the word Echad, the Dalid very much looks like a resh. They're very similar. One's rounded, one's squared. With a right angle, and so the Dalet is big, so that the word shouldn't read Acher, another, that instead of God is one, God is just another God. And so there's this really kind of, and that spells the word ad or the word aid, and the same letters reverse as the word da, to know, to bear witness. It also means until. And part of what I think the verse here is inviting us to do is to uncover the divine that exists in the hidden spaces. And it's not coincidental, I think, that the numerical value of the word acher is 209, one less than the numerical value of the word chaver, ally, which is 210. And that difference is the oneness of the divine. I think it's also not coincidental. I know this is getting a little bit into the weeds. The most famous apostate in the Talmud, Elisha ben Avuya, is called Acher. He's marginalized. He is his identity as one of the great rabbis of the generation is erased through being called Acher, and also meaning literally the other. And the word acher, the first time it's deployed in the Torah, which in general, the first time that we find the word in the Torah speaks to the essence of the thing, is actually in the context of fratricide, of Cain and Hevel. Cain kills Abel, and the verse says that Seth, Shes, is given to Chava as another child. And one way to parse the verse is actually that because she had a child that was seen as other, instead of being seen for who he is, Cain killed him. And so therefore the third child of Seth, from whom Noach and others descend, is really the consequence of the awareness that when people are othered, a natural consequence of that othering in its extreme is actually murder. And so I think the idea that we emphasize that God is one, that we are unified through each other, through the oneness of the divine, and that is the response to the other. Because another, if they are connected to God, and humanity in this way as a human, they're not other. They're actually this one and the same, because we all have the same source of being created in the image of the divine. And in the story of Elisha ben Avuya, part of it takes place in Chagiga, in the second chapter. And it's there's one person who actually continues having a relationship with Acher, and that's his prized Talmud, Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is one of the greatest rabbis of his generation, and he refuses to ostracize his Rebbe, Elisha ben Avuya. And again, I don't think it's coincidental that the teaching in the Gemara in Yuma that says that the power of the individual is so great that the entire world is forgiven is a statement, as a teaching from Rabbi Meir. That perhaps because Rabbi Meir saw each person as being essential without ever having the capacity to be seen as extra, so it was impossible for him to cut him off. Because cutting him off is like cutting oneself off. And I think this is what the Talmud means in the Jerusalem edition, in the Darim, and the verse that says to love another like one loves themselves. That verse also is the prohibition of taking vengeance. And the great parable from the Yerushalmi is that if a person is cutting vegetables and the right hand accidentally cuts the left hand, would the left hand take the knife and then stab the right hand to take revenge? Of course not, because it's one body. And so once it's one body, a person's only going to hurt more by inflicting pain on another part of the body. And so too when it comes to humanity, there is no difference between the other and myself if we're really loving each other like we love ourselves. So where is there space to take vengeance? Taking vengeance on somebody is really like self-inflicted wound. And so that's really the idea of the work of shifting from the acher, from the one who's seen as other, to the echad. It's the same letters, just the difference between the dalid and the resh. And that's perhaps why in the dalid in Deuteronomy 30:28, there is no. It's being emphasized that the way in which we're able to reveal the divine is in recognizing the unity of the divine within humanity. So, as an invitation to do for the work for today, particularly in difficult times of interpersonal relationships, see if you can lean into feeling connected as part of humanity, being connected to the divine, that if we want to have a relationship with God as a parent, we need to take care of all of God's children as our siblings. And how does that make it a little bit easier to feel that there are no strangers in the world? We're all family. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Kultiv.